Canon just got shut out of Yotobashi's top 10 camera sales for the second half of December. This marks 6 straight weeks of poor camera sales for Canon. Is this the beginning of a new trend? Is Canon having supply-side issues, or are people switching from Canon to other brands? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so that way you can stay up to date on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. We like to cover Yodobashi as they regularly release their sales data, and while a large sample size, it's a snapshot of the Japanese market and may not reflect Canon sales worldwide. However, it gives us an idea of what's hot and what's not. Just 2 weeks ago, I published this video about Yodobashi camera sales for the first half of December, and what was remarkable about those sales is that Canon only had 1 camera in the top 10, and normally Canon has anywhere from between 3 to 5 cameras in the top 10, and while they don't always dominate, it's usually a battle between, themselves and Sony. And what was remarkable about these sales data is that the previous 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of November, Canon also had just 1 camera in the top 10, and in the previous months, Canon was dominating the top 10 with as many as 7 cameras in the top 10, and then all of a sudden, things fell completely silent. And what shocked me about the response from that video is that over 60,000 of you watched the video and commented. I couldn't believe the level of response. And the reason why I was so shocked by the number of views is, I've been covering Yodobashi here at The Ordinary Filmmaker for the past couple of years, and I've never seen more than anywhere from, 2 to 5,000 views. And the whole reason for covering this, and I get it, it's just 1 camera retailer in Japan, and while it's a rather large one, and believe me, Yodobashi is absolutely enormous. They have multiple locations throughout Japan, and their stores are just absolutely massive. But on a regular basis, they publish their data. So I thought, it's Sunday, not much is going on. It's a good way to sort of put out a video talking about what's hot and what's not. Give us a chance to sit back, enjoy a cup of tea, our favorite coffee, and talk about what's going on in the world in terms of cameras. Who's hot this week? Who's not? Because the sales data is coming out every 2 weeks, and especially over the past 3 years when we've had supply constraints and all those other issues, we get to see a rather dynamic landscape. And just because we see Canon in the #1 spot this week doesn't mean we're not going to see Sony or Fuji in that #1 spot next week. And looking back over the comments of some 60,000 viewers, many of you thought that, Canon's decision to enforce their intellectual property over third-party lens manufacturers is a large part as to why the sales are falling off. Others felt that, this is a localized issue just to Japan. It doesn't affect the rest of the world. In fact, in North America, we see that Canon's selling an awful lot of R5s, R7s, and other cameras that doesn't appear to be affected. But others also said, look, since 2020, look at how many supply chain issues we've had over the past couple of years. Things keep getting disrupted. And if you've been watching the news over the past several months, China's been having problems with their supply chains, with their manufacturers trying to get parts and components out. They're either in lockdowns or other issues are going on and they just can't get the products out. And of course, Canon, Sony, and other manufacturers throughout the world are still sourcing parts from Japan, or I should say China. So to quickly recap, in the second half of November, Canon only had 1 camera in the top 10. And then in the second 2 weeks of December, Canon again only had 1 camera in the top 10. And one of them was a Canon EOS R6 Mark II. We were expecting to see that camera again in the top 10 here in the second half of December. And when I checked the sales data, I was completely surprised. Not a single Canon camera. Not the R6 or not the R7 or R10, 2 cameras that did very, very well at Yodobashi for the past several months. Not the R6 or the R6 Mark II, not even the Canon EOS R5. 1 camera from Canon that's been selling very, very well for the past couple of years. Not the R3, not the EOS RP. None of the top-selling cameras from Canon that we've seen at Yodobashi. It's rather surprising. All right, without further ado, let's get to the top 10 camera sales in the second half of December. And then once I've finished covering all these cameras, then I'm going to talk about plausible or possible reasons why Canon just completely fell off the charts, why Canon's been having trouble with camera sales, at least at Yodobashi in Japan, for the past 6 weeks. It shouldn't be any surprise that the #1 camera is a Sony, and can you guess which one it is? This camera's been in the #1 spot many times, and yes, it's the Sony a7 IV, but this camera also shows up in 7th place. That's right down here. It shows up in 7th place with the kit package. And the a7 IV, since it was, started shipping in December of last year, I guess it's not last year anymore, we're in 2023, But at the end of 2021, the Sony a7 IV has been selling very well. People are very happy with the camera. A camera priced at $24.99, selling alongside the Canon EOS R6. So we have that camera in first and seventh place. And in second place, we have another Sony camera. This one was announced at the end of October, and that's a Sony a7R5. The camera that has a brand new, a completely dedicated AI chip and a new AI-based autofocus system. But what really struck me about this camera is not that it can do 8K 24 and 25 frames per second, but its pixel shift mode. I never really was that excited over pixel shift. I didn't see it worked really well. It was very hard to get a photo where you didn't have any sort of movement from trees, grass, or even people and vehicles. But Sony did a terrific job, even with vehicles and people moving. I don't know how the camera's able to do this, the magic that's inside the camera, but it's able to produce crisp, clear images, even where you have people or vehicles or grass movement. It's just an incredible camera. But in third place, again, we have a Sony camera, but it's not so much of a stills hybrid camera, but more of a video-centric camera. And that's the Sony FX3, a camera that was announced back in 2020, about a month after Canon announced the R5 and the R6, and it's been selling very well ever since. Surprisingly, though, we don't see the Sony FX30 in the top 10. Well, let me check first. No. A very good camera that's been selling very well ever since, and the FX30 has been selling well as well, but not well enough to show up in the top 10 at Yodobashi for the second half of December. In fourth place, we have the Nikon Z9, a camera that was announced back in October of 2021. And while that camera didn't start shipping until, well, a day before Christmas, it's been selling very, very well ever since. The only thing holding back that camera has been Nikon's ability to be able to get parts and components to be able to ship enough units. A problem that's been plaguing Nikon in 2022. They were due to announce the Nikon Z8, the Nikon Z6, Z7 Mark III, but that's been delayed until, well, this year, the first quarter of 2023, because of parts and sourcing issues. I'm wondering if these same issues could be affecting Canon. In fifth place, we have the Sony a7C zoom kit. And then in sixth place, we have another Nikon, and that's the Nikon Z50, an entry-level full-frame camera in kit form. In eighth place, we have the Sony ZV-E10 kit package, a camera that's been selling very well along with the ZV-1, which came out previously. It's its predecessor. But the ZV-1F, priced at around $500, well, it's a bit of a joke. And while priced at around $500, almost half the price of the ZV-E10, Sony thought it'd be a great idea to take away one of their best autofocus systems, one of the best autofocus systems out there, and instead put in contrast detect autofocus system. Apparently, they haven't been watching the problems that Lumix has been having over the past couple of years with depth from defocus, contrast detect. Didn't see all the wonderful reviews they got and decided, yeah, let's put it in this camera. So as a result, we're not likely to see the Sony ZV-1F in the top 10 anytime soon. Instead, we have the Sony ZV-E10. In ninth place, we have the Fuji X-T5, a camera that many of you have been hoping to see in the top 10 for the past couple of weeks, and it finally shows up. And in 10th place, we have another Fuji. It's the Fuji X-S10 double lens zoom kit. So we see two Fujis in the top 10, we see a couple of Nikons, and, well, Sony completely dominates. And as I said at the beginning of the video, Canon is completely absent from this top 10. So what are the potential reasons? Why could it be that Canon is completely absent from the top 10 at Yodobashi, a top Japanese retailer in Japan? But first, my reasoning into why I put out this video to begin with, why I cover Yodobashi camera sales, the top 10 camera sales in Japan every couple of weeks or so. It's something I've been doing on this channel for the past couple of years. One of the reasons why? Well, because Yodobashi, along with other Japanese camera retailers, well, they release their sales figures every couple of weeks. So it's something on a Sunday when there's really little other news to do to cover off, well, what's the top 10? What's hot and what's not in this past couple of weeks of camera sales? And yes, it's Yodobashi, and yes, it's a major Japanese retailer in Japan, way over there. But remember, this is a worldwide camera channel. And also keep in mind that Japan is where all our favorite camera companies make their cameras, or at least are based. Sony, Canon, Nikon, Pentax, Olympus. Well, they're OM Systems now, Lumix. They're all based out of Japan. Japan is a big market for cameras, and it's a significant one. But again, the whole purpose of the video is to cover what's hot and what's not. And because it's happening every 2 weeks, it's very dynamic. One week, Canon could be dominating with 7 cameras in the top 10, and the next week it could completely swing around to where Sony's dominating. But essentially, I do it for fun. I do it because I enjoy it. I do it because it's Sunday, the last day of the weekend before I go back to work. And I thought, what a great way to cover off camera sales and cameras that we enjoy. We get to talk about all the major camera brands and, well, usually all the major camera models. Since 2020, it's been no surprise that we've had trouble getting, well, pretty well everything. Getting cameras, getting, well, parts to repair our cars, getting lenses, getting stereo components, and even sometimes getting food. There's been food shortages, and there's been many reasons, but a lot of it has been to do with our, well, shipping channels, our logistics, our supply chains. And so it's not really a surprise that here in the beginning of 2023, we see further issues. If we look at China over the past 3 months, they've been having major issues with trying to get production up. They had shutdowns for much of the country, and in the last couple of weeks, things have gotten worse with many people not feeling very well. Is this affecting Canon? Could this be the reason why they're having trouble, but nobody else is? Well, I wouldn't say nobody else is. You see, Nikon has been having an awful lot of problems over the past 6 months as well. The Nikon Z8, the Nikon Z6 Mark III, and the Nikon Z7 Mark III were all due to be announced in the third quarter of 2022, but that didn't happen. They've now been delayed into 2023. Hello, it's now 2023. Happy New Year. And we're supposed to get those cameras sometime in the first half of 2023. With CP Plus coming up in a couple of weeks, I wouldn't be surprised to, well, I'm expecting that on the heels of CP Plus, we'll get at least some sort of announcement from Nikon. Will it be the Z8? I don't know. What about the Z6 Mark III or the Z7 Mark III? Possibly, maybe even a successor to the Z50. It's certainly possible that Canon is having trouble sourcing parts and components. It's not a surprise that camera companies and, well, manufacturers around the world have been having problems. This is certainly one of the most plausible reasons. Parts and component shortages for the past couple of years? Yeah, definitely plausible. And while things have been getting a whole lot better, everybody's back to work and we're starting to get back to normal, well, that isn't the case in China. If you look at the news, you can see that over the past 3 months, there have been major disruptions to China. China has been shutting down parts of entire cities, cities that are involved in the manufacturing of parts and components used in cameras and other goods that we purchase. And in the last month alone, things have gotten completely worse. A lot of people are getting sick in China, and that's reducing the amount of people that are actually able to go to work to produce these parts and components. China is just a complete mess right now, and anybody who's producing parts and components in China, if they're not in the hurt locker right now, well, they're about to be. Not too long ago, a couple of months ago, Canon decided to enforce their intellectual property, something that, well, they're legally entitled to do in Europe, in North America, in Asia, and that was to enforce their intellectual property concerning third-party lenses. So if you were making a third-party lens and it had autofocus, well, Canon came down on you, their legal team at least, like a bag of wet hammers. And basically you stopped producing lenses. The only lenses by third-party makers right now, and I've got a few of them right here, well, they're manual focus, no automatic focus lenses. And this really irritated a lot of people. I'm amazed at how much this story blew up. A lot of people were very unhappy, so much so that many of you, and I see this in the comment section down below, and if you want to go back to that previous video, this one here, with the hundreds of comments, so many said that, yeah, you know what, I've been shooting Canon for so many years, but this just got to me. I was looking so much to the Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter and other Sigma lenses, other third-party lenses, affordable lenses, a segment that's really kind of missing in Canon right now. They have a lot of, well, high-grade L-series lenses, but when you look at that mid-grade or the entry level, it's really sparsely populated, and people don't want to adapt EF glass. It's one of the messages I've gotten loud and clear, that they want to get new lenses. They don't want to be adapting. They want to get the new. They want to get the benefits of new lenses. And a lot of people were really upset. Now, some aren't leaving Canon, but many said, yeah, I'm going to Lumix now with the brand new cameras, the Lumix S5 Mark II and the Mark II X, or I'm going to Sony, or I'm going to Nikon. They're just really tired of Canon. They've sold their gear. Some people even bought the Canon R5 and said, you know what, I'm sending it back. I'm tired of this. There was an awful lot of frustration. And I do believe this is real. I do believe people are saying, I'm done with Canon, or at least are boycotting Canon until they come out with approving third-party lens manufacturers. And I do believe this is affecting Canon sales, but I don't believe it's to the large portion of where Canon had anywhere from 3 to 7 cameras in the top 10 to none. I think other factors are at play here. And I do believe this is a contributing factor. And I think it's somewhere between 1 and 5% of the sales that we're seeing right now, and maybe closer to 1% than 5%. Remember, keep in mind that Canon has somewhere around 45 to 46% of worldwide global sales in 2021. We don't have the numbers for 2022 yet because the year has just ended, but I suspect that Canon probably hasn't lost too much, at least too much in their sales. I think they had a pretty good year, but Sony is the big surprise. 27%, up significantly from around 22%, and Nikon down around 11.3%. But I want to know if you've had trouble purchasing any Canon gear or any camera gear in general, what that gear was, how long you've been waiting for it, whether you pre-ordered it, whether you just bought it at a camera store, how long it's taken for you to get that gear, but also, very importantly, what region you live in. Unlike Microsoft tried to do back, 10, 15 years ago and predict the demise of Apple's iPhone, I think it's a little bit too early to predict Canon's funeral. Canon has somewhere between 45 and 46% worldwide market share, and I don't see that evaporating overnight after 6 weeks. I think what we're seeing here is two potential issues. One is supply side issues. They've had trouble getting parts and components out of China to be able to produce their cameras. The other thing is, when it comes to shipping, it's not like you send your orders into Canon Japan and they say, okay, you know what, here's your order, that's fine, it's taken care of. What they do is they bulk plan. They say, okay, for the Americas, we're gonna set aside this many cameras. For Europe, we're gonna set aside this many. For Africa, this many. And then even into the Americas, they'll say, okay, Canada, because there's a separate Canon headquarters in Canada, Canon Canada gets this many, Canon USA gets this many, Canon UK gets this many, and so on. And what can quite often happen is Canon Canada may get an overabundance of R5s, whereas Canon USA may not. So if you walk into a camera store in Canada, in Toronto, like Downtown Camera, you can purchase a Canon R5, whereas in the US, you might still be waiting several months. But I think we're going to see the same in North America. I think what's going on in China is going to greatly affect everybody. It's not something I wanted to see. I thought we were getting back to normal. I thought that in 2021, then in 2022. And in 2023, things started to look better. But what we're seeing happening in China with all the shutdowns, while the shutdowns have stopped, so many people are getting sick that what that's doing is that's impacting the manufacturing sector. And still today, here in 2023, even though a lot of manufacturers have left China, still a lot of parts and components are shipped in there. It's very, very, very difficult to completely change your supply chain, to move from one country to another, as some have been doing. It takes time, it takes years. And I think that here in 2023, some announcements could be affected. We're supposed to be getting many announcements from Canon coming up in the next couple of weeks, the R50, the R100, the R1000, an EOS RP replacement, and even the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. And what I suspect, news about the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and other Canon cameras, we'll probably start to get some leaked announcements very, very shortly, some leaked specifications over the next couple of days. The holidays are over, New Year's is over, and things are getting back to normal. So expect some videos coming out this week. But also Nikon with their Z8, the Z6 Mark III, the Z7 Mark III, maybe even a Z50 refresher might be coming out very soon, or a Z5. So keep an eye out for that. Sony, of course, we're expecting some announcements, maybe the A9 Mark III, and who knows what Panasonic's got planned. I wouldn't be surprised to see many Panasonic announcements coming up. We're expecting an S refresh of the S1, the S1H, and maybe even the S1R with their new phase detect autofocus system, which is absolutely wonderful. So if you want to stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors, please go ahead and click that subscribe button, followed by choosing all notifications. And by choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, well, you'll get notified by YouTube so you can stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors. And if you're interested in purchasing any of the cameras or lenses talked about in this video, please use my links down below for B&H or Amazon.com, because it really help support this channel and helps this channel grow. But a big thanks to many of you who used my affiliate links over the past couple of months, over the Christmas season, and it really helps support this channel, so thank you very much. But now, as we enter the second week of January, get ready. Things are going to get very busy for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to probably be producing a video almost every day. We're going to get some leaked announcements, leaked specifications, leaked images of upcoming Canon cameras, Nikon cameras, Sony cameras, Panasonic cameras, and after CP+, things certainly aren't going to die down. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We'll see you again soon.